The military wanted to go after areas they considered more valuable. On the coast was always an area that the military wanted to take over. Of course, all the port cities, that was like the first target. Then the American farmland, every area where there's a lot of farms, the military wanted to take over. Then the military wanted to take over any area with a lot of factories or industry. The military took over all those areas. Any area that has some sort of wealth to it, the military targeted first. Natural resources, waterways, access to the ocean, farmland, livestock. Many of you live in or near these areas, but you don't realize it because the military leaves some people alone and they go out of their way to target other people. And these are becoming more and more common all across America. They eventually want America to be one military-controlled region, but this activity is more prevalent in some areas. I spoke before, this is what all the monopolies are for. People just think it's about big corporations getting richer. It's all about control. It's all about a merger between government and corporations. And then they decide who gets to work and who gets basically a state check. And that's the same thing as communism. I don't want to go into too much detail about this, but fascism. A fasces is a bundle of sticks with like an axe head sticking out. And what that means is all the power centers are merged together. That'll be corporations, the military, the government, the media. All these are different sticks put together as one controlling entity. That's fascism. That's what Hitler was about. He was a socialist. So socialism is the midpoint to communism. So communism is an extreme form of socialism, where basically the government and the military run the whole society. They run it all, and everybody else gets a welfare check. And since they don't like a lot of people on welfare, a lot of people end up dead. They talk about revolutions and rebellions. They just go around hacking people up. They go around with military death squads killing people, to put it simply. So that's where they're bringing you. So if you want to know what communism is, study your U.S. military. That is communism. Now in capitalism or a republic, if you work harder, you work more hours, you could save up money. You could eventually open up a business of your own. That's not the direction that we're going in. A bunch of independent businesses in competition with each other. When that happens, it drives the economy, it drives the middle class, and more people are successful, there's more jobs, there's better prices, there's better deals, everything works out better. We're going in the opposite direction of that, where there's less jobs controlled by giant corporations, and nobody has any independent businesses anymore. And that is kind of like a prediction in the Bible. It's a prophecy in the Bible, which is mark of the beast, which is nobody has the right to buy or sell unless they have the mark of the beast, which is unless they have approval from the government. They're going to find it real hard to get a job or to create their own business and sell something, because they'll be kept down. So you'll see this especially in military-controlled regions. So when you move to a military-controlled region, it's like moving on an undercover military base. You just can't walk into the nearest Staples. You can't walk into the nearest gas station and fill an application, and if you have a good resume, you might get hired. The government controls who works where and who doesn't work. So you have to understand these people who are chosen to progress into these programs in the military. They're selected because they have accepted that they have no rights, often from the times they were little children and they were abused. They didn't grow up in regular families and they were abused. And the idea that you may have some rights is a joke to them, and they hate you for even thinking that. And they look at anybody else who thinks that they have the right the job or a right to say no or a right to live where they want or marry who they want. These people in the military hate them. They hate them. These people in the military have been programmed to not have any freedom whatsoever, to not have any basic human rights whatsoever. Everything is controlled. They're told what to do from the morning they get up to when they go to sleep at night. They have no freedom whatsoever. So they hate anybody who thinks they might have freedom. They hate the middle class. So it's all a big inside joke to these people when an outsider moves to one of their areas. They hate this outsider and they go out of their way to heckle the outsider
play games with the outsider, and eventually set the outsider up to get killed in one way or another, because that outsider is not one of us. So it's all a big act when you're out there in society. Now, many of you, unfortunately, are going to have to find this out the hard way, but I'm going to warn you anyway. The people in these military programs that basically invade and attack their own country, they are the worst people in the world. They are filled with nothing but hate, and they like to hide that in public and put on a big good guy face and a good guy attitude. But they can't wait to make your life hell and then torture and kill you. These people are the worst people in the world. So when you start to say that person might not be so bad or this person seems alright, they are fooling you. These people are programmed multiples. They all have multi-personality disorder, and they're all programmed to switch into a personality that they show to the public eye. And oftentimes this is somebody that they stalked and killed. So let's just use Kennedy as an example. When these guys go out in public and they got to interact with normal, everyday citizens, they will tell themselves, or their handler will say, turn into Kennedy. And they'll put on this attitude and they'll put on this act like they're Kennedy. Or turn into this individual. And they begin to act like that good guy individual that they basically stalked, spied on, and harassed. They know that individual so well, they can basically act like that individual. They basically become that individual in the public eye. They're basically actors. That's part of their program. So they're told to become this person or become that person. And it's usually people that they have spied on, targeted, and harassed if they're supposed to act like a good guy. And if they're supposed to act like a bad guy and turn into a monster, they should turn into Jeffrey Dahmer. They should turn into Ted Bundy. They should turn into another personality they all know, their fellow brother or their fellow sister that they work with. So that is the whole multi-personality program. All of these guys are bisexual, if not homosexual. That's another big part of the program in the military. And they want their guys to be homosexual due to the fact that they do not want their men and women falling in love with members of the opposite sex and then having children. Because when you have children, it changes you into a better person. You get more compassionate. You get more sympathetic. You start looking at people in society as your children. You gain a greater understanding of life. So until you go through this, it probably does not make much sense to you, those of you who do not have children. And I'm sure that you've heard this countless times. But when you have children, it changes you for the better. And you go from being like, with the attitude, the world is a stupid place, and I kind of want to rebel against the world. You change as, I am the world's representative to my children. My children are looking up to me as to say, what's the world about, Dad? What is this world that you've given me? So all of a sudden, you say to yourself, I better represent the world correctly. I better work real hard to make the best world I can make for my children. The whole attitude changes. Before, you don't have kids, yeah, I'll just get drunk, the world's stupid. Another day watching junk on the TV, this is all boring, this is all stupid, I hate people. People are dumb. I don't care if somebody got into a car accident and died, doesn't matter to me. So another stupid person, that all goes out the window. And everybody in the ruling establishment knows that. So that's why they do not want their military personnel to get married. So they program their people into being bisexual and then homosexual because they find it's easier to control single people. They can move them all around and they never develop that insight that I just explained to you. So another thing about these military people is that they are very immature. When it comes down to them, it's like dealing with a bunch of adolescents at best. That's why they enjoy to basically harass people, torture people with these radio frequency energy weapons, drive them into states of hysteria, and then they think it's a big joke. All the kids get to laugh at the guy that once owned a company or the guy that was once the boss of something. We all get to laugh at his fall. It's a big joke to them. So let me give you an example of William Cooper, who wrote the book Behold the Pale Horse. He served in the military. He worked as a spat operator, which is a special category communication center where they'll basically take in I think radio communications and they'll put it into code. And a lot of weird stuff went through that station. And he went on to be a researcher of secret societies, aliens, UFOs, the government, and he wrote a great book called Behold a Pale Horse. Now I think that he was very successful in California to the point that he would speak to large crowds. And California is the place to get known. So he worked at a school and the military harassed him there, and they went and talked to the people who owned the school, according to his book, and said, yeah, that's the guy that talks about aliens and stuff. He writes books about it. So they got him fired from his job. And the next step was to move him out of this area like California out into one of their military controlled regions. And that turned out to be Eager, Arizona. So I'm sure they played a little game with William Cooper in that California is not the right place for you to be. You should go to Arizona, out in the middle of nowhere. And if I could guess, I have no idea exactly what they did, but I know he gave one lecture at a place called the Little Alien Inn, or the Little Alien. So they got him into Eager, Arizona, and I bet you he went there and he saw a bunch of alien signs and alien stuff, and they had all their military people walking around with alien shirts on. And Bill probably thought that was the place to go. Those would be his people. That was the area that was ready to hear the truth. Where also, I bet he got a good deal on a house. Houses are probably a lot cheaper out there in the middle of nowhere than they would be in California. And once he moved there, his attitude slightly changed about the people around there. Suddenly there's not a bunch of people out there promoting they want to know the truth about aliens. Suddenly the military shows their true face, which is they're essentially a bunch of programmed schizophrenics that are very young in their mind. They're filled with hate of any outsiders and anybody who shows any type of freedom or thinks they have any type of rights. And for you to try to speak out against secret societies and military control, you're against them and they hate you, you're the enemy, and all these pea-brains can't wait to teach you a lesson and then kill you. So they began to show that attitude in public. And most often it's by playing real stupid and going out of their way to give you a hard time. They like to provoke altercations in public.